aspect of the Civil War that is often overlooked from a military standpoint is the role that the Navy played in the Northern victory. Despite having a small navy at the beginning of the war, by the time the war was ending, the United States Navy was at a large number, and it was one of the most powerful navies in the world. About 200 steam-powered warships were derived from almost 700 vessels by the end of the war, a number that was up several times from 42 vessels at the beginning of the war. The number of men involved in the Navy grew over 5 times throughout the war, and the amount of money put into the Navy increased over 10 times to about $120 million. Often overlooked, the impact of the Northern Navy against the South was undeniable. The Union Navy's strengths were used against the Confederacy, who, at the start of the war, did not have a very organized navy. The Union Navy was used to blockade the coast. The Union had to blockade the South to prevent ships from going between European and Confederate ports. This was a major part of the Anaconda Plan. This plan called for a strangling hold to be put on the Confederacy in both naval and army capacities. The Union blockade was successful and was able to force the closure of many significant Confederate ports. As the Union Navy was originally weak at the beginning of the war, a new nation, such as the Confederate States of America, had to start military from scratch, including an army as well as a navy. Though the Confederate Army was able to win many victories on land, the Confederate Navy was never able to win over the Union Navy, which was organized even at the beginning of the war and only needed to be expanded in addition to some wartime reorganization. The ironclad warships that the Confederates used did threaten the blockade of the Union, but were never able to compete with them because of the undersized engines and ironclads used. The only positive thing the Confederate Navy had over its Union counterpart was that the Confederate Navy was able to draw on officers who were formerly in the United States Navy, allowing them to gain some manpower as the Union lost it. However, without the industrial capacity of the North, the Confederacy was not able to have a good shipbuilding industry. Despite some small early successes, they played no larger role in the naval aspect of the war that went overwhelming in the Union favor. The Confederates did have some technological advances, such as the first submarine, but it was only effective in spots near the end of the Civil War, when the Confederates were already almost defeated. The Confederate Navy did not have enough early success to matter in the long run. Possibly the most important part of the Union Navy was the blockade that was imposed early in the war that shut down Confederate ports. The Confederate coast fell under Union influence as port after port closed throughout the war. The only port that was able to resist the Union attack and influence was Charleston in South Carolina, though this was not enough to supply the Confederates as a whole. The Confederate Navy was never able to break through the blockade held throughout all of the war once it was established. The blockade was the most important thing in the Union naval strategy, despite not being able to cover the entire coast. Without a fully functioning industry, the Confederacy as a whole suffered because of the big drop in trade, resulting in the drop-off of both military and non-military goods.